Hi, fourth level. Hopefully, you have all had a very good spring break and you're ready to start a new week of school online. Fourth level, we are going to be talking about an introduction to decimals. Let's talk about what a decimal is. First of all, let's talk about place value. We all know that green represents the units of a number. Well, in this number 1, there's actually a decimal that lives here, but we don't see it because we don't need it. And we only need it when we talk about numbers that are not whole numbers, which are counting numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, things like that. It is numbers that are less than 1, but still greater than 0. And I'll get into that a little more shortly. But right here, behind the unit, lives a decimal. And the only time we would need to put a decimal mark here is if we have numbers that are less than a whole. I'll clarify that in a little bit, but what I want to tell you now is let's talk about place value. So we know that all of our number system is based on the unit. In Montessori, our second place value is our tens, and our tens are written in blue. But going the opposite way into the decimals would also be written as blue. And if this is a tens, this is a tenths. Tens, tenths. The THS at the end of the place value indicates a number that is a decimal. This is actually a key piece of information because we start with our units, with our ones. We don't have oneths. There isn't a oneths or a green past the decimal. Our green, our unit, is where it all starts. It all starts with this. Move over 1, it's tens. Move over 1, it's tenths. If we can remember that there are no oneths, there are no units, the first place past the decimal is a tenth. Now, 3 spots over here is the hundreds. 1. This spot over here is the hundredths. Does that make sense? Hundreds, hundredths. Now, we would have a comma on this side, and the 4th spot over here is the thousands place. So what do you think this spot over here is? Did you say thousandths? That's thousand with a THS at the end of the word. Thousandths. That would be correct if you did. And the pattern continues, where after the green comes the blue. 10,000s, 10,000ths, 100,000s, 100,000ths. We would put our comma back in here. Millions, millionths. Now, you might notice something here. We have commas where we would normally expect to have the commas, every third spot. But there are no commas in a decimal. You do not put a comma in the decimal, which makes it a little harder to read. You have to be careful to follow place values. Tenths, hundredths, thousandths, 10,000ths, 100,000ths, millionths. Let's talk about how we would say this. Our whole numbers we read like we normally would. However, once we get to a decimal, we use the word and. And indicates that there is a decimal in the number. It means that everything after the and is a number less than 1, less than a whole. So this would be 1 and 2. We say the number and then the place value, tenths. 1 and 2 tenths. If we go to the hundredths spot, we're going to say 1 and, we read these numbers together. It's 23. 23, but we say the hundredths, as the hundredths is the place value that the 23 is in. If we have the number here, and we look at the number 234, that's important to know, because we're going to read it as a 234. It's 1 and 234, but I have to give the place value. Tenths, hundredths, thousandths. Since it's in the thousandths place value, 1 and 234 thousandths. Remember, we read the number before the decimal like we normally would. This is a 21 and 234 thousandths. 321 and 234 thousandths. 1,321 and 234 thousandths. You may hear your teachers groan if you say this number like 426. Unfortunately, you'll even hear that number spoken incorrectly on the news. Hey, please stop. Please stop. 426 is not correct. When you say and, it indicates a decimal. And when you finish the 26, we're waiting for a place value of hundredths. It technically, if you say 4, well, that wouldn't really be right. That would be 4 and 26 hundredths. But this would be 426 hundredths. I'm sorry, I'm a little distracted. So, if this is our decimal, say it out loud. What is this? What place value is this green? It's the ones. It's the unit. All right. So the first place value past it is the tens. So if we go the other direction, what's this place value? Say it. If you said tenths, that's correct. Hundreds. What is it? Hundredths. Thousands. Thousandths. What is this? 10,000. 10,000ths. 100,000. 100,000ths. Come on, what is this one? What's after 100,000s? Millions. So what's after 100,000ths? Did you say millionths? I hope so. So, what is a decimal? Let's take a look at this circle. And this circle represents a whole. All the pieces to the circle are there. It could be a round pizza. It could be a cookie. Whatever it is, it's complete. That's a whole unit of one. There is one circle. But if I took that and I broke it into pieces, I could break it into 10 pieces. Montessori colors, if I have a hole here, if it's a hole, it would be my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. But if I break it into 10 pieces, these are my tenths. It takes 10 little pieces to make a whole. So, right now, let's say I don't have any holes. If I have no holes, my unit could be represented as a 0. But if I have 1 out of 10 pieces, 1 out of 10, it means I have 1/10. If I have 2 out of 10, I have 2/10. If I have 3 out of 10 pieces, I have 3/10. Do you see the pattern? I'm getting closer to having a whole. 4 out of 10 pieces gives me 4/10. 10 pieces will make the whole. I have 4 of them. All the way up, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. If I have 9 out of 10 pieces, I'm almost to a whole, but not quite. I have 9/10. But once I add 1 more tenth to that, now this is a complete circle. It is a whole, so I have my whole. It is one complete whole, and this all goes away. I can either just write it as 1 because I have a complete whole 1, or 1.0, depending on what I need to do. But I don't have anything here. But I have my whole here. It was all color, all complete, all colored in. We could continue. If I had my 1 whole and then another 1 out of 10 pieces, it'd be 1 1/10. 1 4/10. Every time I fill this up, it adds another whole. So 1 9/10. It's 1 whole and 9 out of 10. If I fill up this is now complete. When this is complete, I've got a second whole. There is now 2 whole units. This slid over. It became the second unit, and it is 2.0, or just 2. Does that make sense? Another way you can look at this, and it would be so much easier if we had our Montessori materials that you could touch and hold and do it yourself. But imagine we have 0 units here, and we have 1 out of 10 tenths. If I had all of these filled, it would equal a whole. But I have 1 of them, so it would be 1/10. It would be written as 0.1. If I had 2 of them filled, 2 out of 10, it would be 0.2, or 2/10. 3/10, 4/10, 5/10. That would be written as 0.5. 5 out of 10, 5/10. 6, 7, 8, 9, 0.9, 9/10. We have 9/10. If we complete that next one, all of them are filled, and it changes our unit to a 1. Those are exchanged for the unit. I no longer, I have a whole. My fractional pieces, my decimal, my tenths, is now a whole, so it moved over, and that goes away because there are no pieces anymore. There are no pieces. There's just a 1. There's just a unit, a whole. Or if we continued it, I have a whole and then 1 out of 10 more pieces. It's 1.1, or 1 1/10. 1 and 2/10, 1 and 3/10, 1 and 9/10. As soon as I add that extra little piece there, I have another whole. So this all slides over here and becomes a 2. Just a 2. Or 2.0, 2 and no tenths, if we need to identify this place value, which you will for rounding and other things. It's a lesson in the future. If tenths is pieces out of 10, what do you think hundredths are? Hundredths are how many pieces you have out of 100. Here, my whole circle isn't broken into 10 parts. It's broken into 100 parts. So 100 pieces need to come together before it forms a whole. If this was a pizza, they'd be very, very tiny slivers of pizza, because it would take 100 slices before that are all together to make a whole pizza. So we have to we have to phrase our wording differently, because we are working with a unit of hundredths. There are 100 here. So if, and I've changed the color from blue circles to red circles, I still have my column of 10, except now I have 10 columns of it. So if one of these is colored, I should actually slide this over just a little bit. If I colored one, it's written like that. 0 and 1/100th. If I have 2, it would be 0 and 2/100ths colored. All the way up to here, now I have 0 and 9/100ths. If I add one more, this 9 becomes a 10. So we would write it, the blue is the 10. We say it, well, it would technically be 10/100ths, 10 out of 100. If we don't need this 100th spot, please remember we can get rid of zeros. Scratch what I was going to say. This really feels like an awful lot to try to pack into one lesson. And if we were all together in the classroom, this all wouldn't be thrown together in a single day and in a single lesson. So let's just move on with this concept, and maybe Fran can later talk about zeros at the end of a decimal number. I'm going to skip that for right now and continue. If we had 10 plus 8 out of 100, that's 18, then this would be written as 0 and 18 hundredths. Let's see what this is. We have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 61, 62 out of 100. This would be 0 and 62 hundredths. In this one, everything is filled up except this. If there are 100 circles and 99 of them are filled up, then it would be 0 and 99 100ths. I am just one little tiny piece away from having a whole complete unit. If I add just one more, now everything is complete. This becomes 100. The 1 carries over. I have one whole. And everything else reverts to zeros or goes away. This all goes away because it's no longer less than 1. It is a whole. If tenths represents how many pieces out of 10 there is to make a whole, and hundredths is how many pieces out of 100 that will make a whole, what do you think thousandths are? Hopefully, is it okay if I don't draw 1,000 circles? Thank you. I appreciate that. But you get the idea. It's how many pieces out of 1,000 there are. 10 thousandths. There are 10,000 pieces to make a whole. How many pieces out of 10,000 do you have? Millionths. If we have millionths, there are 1,000,000 pieces to make a whole. How many out of those million pieces are there that you have to make a whole? www.ixl.com is the website that you can get some practice with this. There is an assignment that will be posted to do on ixl.com, and more information will follow shortly. I will be honest, I feel that this lesson may be a bit confusing. My apologies for that. IXL should have some good tutorials, lessons to help clarify and support what I've shown you. Hopefully you've taken some notes and can do the work that is the introduction to decimals that Fran is assigning on IXL.com. Please keep your messages coming, your questions, posted on Google Classroom or private message to Fran or I, and we will get back to you as quickly as possible and help you out. Good luck with it, and see you again soon.